Delmarva Today with Don Rush.
The 81st National Folk Festival in Salisbury is just a few months away. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. This will be the third and final year for the National Festival in Salisbury. It will run a bit earlier this year, coming on the weekend of August 26th. Be around 350 artists, ranging from musicians and dancers to storytellers and craftspeople. This morning, we'll be looking at some of those acts, along with how the festival is shaping up. And our studio this morning is Caroline O'Hare. She's the local manager of the festival. And on the phone with us is Blaine Wade. He's the Associate Director of the National Council for the Traditional Arts. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Don.
So I want to turn to you first, Caroline. We're coming up really fast. It's a little bit earlier than the last few years, with September being the date. How are things shaping up at this point?
Things are going great. We actually just opened up the volunteer shifts on May 20th. So if you want to volunteer for the festival, head to nationalfolkfestival.com and click on volunteers, or you can even sign up directly on shoregetconnected.org. We're looking for about 800 volunteers, and we would love to have you. You can make a lot of new friends. You can do an area that you're familiar with, such as maybe site setup or beer sales or guest services, or you could do something new. We're also asking corporations and organizations to come together as a team and show their civic pride, volunteer at the Folk Festival. You get a free T-shirt. It's a lot of fun, and we've got great incentives throughout the summer for those that do sign up early.
So in terms of the acts themselves, just sort of overall, is there any difference between what we've seen in the past and what now, or is this a new improved, or any emphasis there?
I think each year the team tries to top the year from before. Right. So this year we have our marketplace coming back, which is exciting. We have our family area coming back, which is great. Street performers will be there. And we also have our dance pavilion back. So we're very excited about that. So we're still going to have the incredible world-class performers coming, but the feel is going to be a bit more fuller. We're, still working on our COVID policy, obviously, and we will follow the guidelines for the CDC, local and state officials. But we're moving forward, bringing back a lot more activities like we had in 2019.
By the way, what are going to be the COVID protocols, or at least what you're looking at?
Sure. Right now, we're looking at community levels. So there's different policies depending on the level that we're in. We're currently in medium. So there are some things that we would need to apply to our performers and to some of our volunteers and to our crew. But the public-facing document will be ready about 6 weeks before the festival, when we really have an idea of where we're at during the festival. So around July 16th, we should have a public-facing document which will talk about the types of steps we're taking to make this a safe and fun event for everyone.
By the way, will any of those protocols, at least for the moment that you know of, will include some kind of masking, or will some people be wearing masks, or what?
Some people might. And obviously what we hope is that wherever you go now, at the festival or just at the store or what have you, there are some places that ask you to wear a mask. And if someone asks you to wear a mask, please do. Just carry one with you. And if you don't have one with you, we'll have some at the festival at various stations. But it's all about being a good neighbor, about treating each other with respect. Some people have some health issues where they ask that you remain masked, and some people feel like they can go without. So as soon as we get a little bit closer to the festival, we should know more about the policies we'll put in place.
So I want to turn to you about the idea of some of these acts here. And one of them, of course, is the Irish music, which is with Eileen Ivers. Blaine, tell me a little bit about this particular performer.
Sure, of course, Don. So Eileen is one of the most celebrated and preeminent Irish fiddlers, not only living in America, but playing Irish music worldwide. She grew up in a deep Irish American community in the Bronx. Her parents had immigrated from County Mayo, and started playing music and had the good fortune of studying under Irish fiddler Martin Mulvihill, who's a National Heritage Fellow. And I should note, Martin's son, Brendan Mulvihill, actually played at the festival in 2019. He lives in Baltimore now. But getting back to Eileen, she had like I said, the good fortune to learn directly at his feet. And there's really no better teacher for Irish fiddle, if you were coming up when Eileen was, than Martin Mulvihill. And then she went on from a very young age to win numerous, and now totaling over 30, championship medals competing in competitions in Ireland. So winning a number of accolades there. And then as she sort of transitioned into a professional career, she was founding member of Cheriston Ladies, a really important all-female Irish group. She's had some major exposure through film soundtracks like Gangs of New York, and is really known for exploring other traditions and finding ways to combine those with Irish music, a deep interest in immigrant cultures through her experiences growing up in New York. But what's really exciting about her coming to the festival, the National Folk Festival this year, is she's put together, just for us, special for the festival, a really traditional ensemble featuring uilleann pipes, bodhrán, percussion, her longtime guitarist, accordion, and piano, and then, of course, her fiddle, and she'll have guitar and banjo, too. And we're thrilled she'll also be joined by some champion step dancers who participate with an Annapolis-based dance studio, the Maple Academy of Irish Dance. And so there'll be a really nice and exciting dance component, a tie-in locally to Maryland, but it's just a real treat to get to work with Eileen and to have her put together a traditional ensemble like this just for the festival.
Now, one of the quotes I ran across was that she could not be contained by Irish music itself. What does that mean?
I think that quote from Frank McCourt is really speaking to what I referenced a bit earlier, in that her musical genius, though deeply rooted in Irish tradition, and having grown up around it, then expanded into trying to find cross-cultural connections, similarities through her work with other cultural traditions, and trying to, like I said, mix into finding a commonality in her experience growing up in an immigrant family with what other cultures have brought to the United States through the immigrant experience, and making those cross-cultural connections. So I think that really speaks to just her wide-ranging interests and her excellence as a musician in building those bridges and looking very big picture in those ways.
As you said a moment ago, she seems to be fascinated by that immigrant experience.
Yeah, I think it was deeply impactful for her, and growing up when she did in the Bronx, and has defined a lot of what she does. And what's exciting for us at the festival, and we've known Eileen for a long, long time, although it's been a bit since we worked with her, is that vision she has is very much encapsulate what the festival is about representing the culture of all Americans, those who have been here going back centuries to the newest arrivals. And so she thrives in the workshop settings and the cross-cultural collaborations we have in talk demonstration settings. So it'll be really interesting to see at the festival how she interacts with some of the other musicians.
And she finally says that it's the music that's a star, not any of us. She seems to say, in effect, that the music is the most important thing, and whatever displays that she has in terms, certainly performance, and she had, I think it was the electric fiddle at one point, that really it's all about the music first and almost her second.
Yeah, and that's really an important and powerful statement coming from somebody of Eileen's accomplishments, Eileen performs with major symphonies, and she really runs the gamut of what she can do. And again, the symphony point speaks to the can't-be-contained idea as well, but there's a deep modesty there. It's a respect for the tradition, first and foremost, and what she is able to do carrying it forward.
Also hear a little bit of it. I want to turn to a storyteller. Gene is the first name, from Alaska. Tell me a little bit about the performer and the idea of telling a story in both music and dance.
Sure. So Gene Tagaman is an acclaimed Tlingit storyteller. He hails originally from Alaska, now makes his home in a small community within Tacoma, Washington. And though he is his family lineage, his background is has different Cherokee heritage and Filipino, it was really his Tlingit connection through his father's family and to that community in Southeast Alaska that really connected with him. And ironically, even though it was his father, it was his mother who insisted and ensured that as Gene was growing up, he carried forward and was exposed to that Tlingit heritage through enrolling him in different traditional dance groups and then storytelling at school. And this was really impactful for Gene. And sort of to your question, he learned early on that storytelling is both a visual and an oral, A-U-R-A-L, experience, or an oral tradition as well. And so that's something as he continued on and was exposed to different elders and storytellers, and then through a particular theater, that's a mission Gene decided to carry forward and keep alive through his performance. And the one that he's really become known for is this striking both visual and oral story of the Raven, who is a trickster in Tlingit cosmology, known for bringing light to the world. And what Gene often does in performance is tell the story of the Raven in a very impactful and profound way, and then performs it. He puts on this just exquisite and visually striking raven mask and does a dance. So he then tells the story. So he brings both components of storytelling into what he does, and it's really exciting for us at the festival. We've featured a number of indigenous and native artists over the years, but to look at cultures coming out of Alaska and the far, far reaches of the Pacific Northwest is something we have not yet done in Salisbury. So it's going to be really great to have Gene. And he's great both with kids and families, and interactiveness and interactivity and participation is a huge part of what he'll do. So he'll have the audience very involved in the storytelling. And also clapping along with the dance.
Now, he comes from Southeast Alaska, where, as I understand it, people actually have been living there for some 11,000 years. But his own people experience a deculturalization through particularly some of the federal assimilation programs. Tell me a little bit about that, and the fact I understand that his mother kind of tried to push back on that for him and his brother.
Sure. So, I mean, one of the, there's many aspects of the great tragedies of what happened to when to the colonization process, and as there were different arrivals to the native and the indigenous communities who were already here in the present day United States and North America. But sort of second and third layers of that have been the attempts to erase culture through forced education at residency schools, and trying to make sure people of Native background and Native heritage were not learning their own cultural traditions, but instead learning those of sort of the dominant American culture or American society. And then the great risk and tragedy and loss there is seeing those cultural traditions wiped out gradually over time, and that's what we refer to when we talk about deculturalization. And the same idea of assimilation, and then it's what's so important, and that's in the story that Gene represents, is when others, parents or other family members, actively push back against that and make sure kids are exposed to their own cultural traditions, and that's what keeps it alive. I mean, Gene wouldn't be here if it weren't for that. He wouldn't be here as a storyteller if it weren't for what his mother did. And one thing that we don't mention in the bio, because there's only so much you can say in 450 words or so, but a story Gene tells a lot, and I actually heard him tell recently at a performance in D.C. is, I believe when his mother was pregnant, it was his grandmother, I think, who would call and have Jean's mother put the phone up against her stomach, where Jean, when she was pregnant, and his grandmother would tell stories. So whenever you ask Jean, when did you first hear your stories, he'd say, before I was born. So it was something he was exposed to. It was obviously very, very important to his family to make sure that was carried forward. And it's great.
You should mention that he performs in this sort of hand-painted mask of the dark bird's head, which is a raven, of course, and with a large beak. And then he has these sort of large tan feathers, feathered wings that are outlined, of course, in black, and then sort of spreads out from his arms. And he talks about this idea that he's trying to give a mission of empowerment to people through his stories.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you can take the content or the theme of any of the stories he tells, as well as what he represents, coming from a community that was disenfranchised and underrepresented, and what he's been able to do by embracing his traditional culture, harnessing it, and is a renowned storyteller who travels the world sharing those stories, and so both on stage through his own story, and then trickster figures, which the raven represents, are often the underdogs of the different worldviews or sort of mythological superstructures they operate in, who are undermining the authorities that be. So, by its very nature, telling stories about a trickster figure is also very empowering, showing people who may not have the same opportunities how through guile and wit and different things they're able to win the day. So I think there's a lot both about Gene himself and the stories he tells that is very empowering.
I want to turn now to Nathan and the Zydeco Cha-Chas. Nathan Williams, tell me a little bit about that. I was listening to it. It seems like really classic Zydeco.
Yeah, I mean, among the current players of Zydeco, especially those who have been around going back a few decades, I mean, Nathan is probably at the top of the list of people carrying forward the music that really created and defined by C.J. Chenier back in the 1950s or post-World War II era. Nathan is going to just blow people away in the dance tent, as Caroline said. We're thrilled to have the dance pavilion back. And among his peers, Nathan is really seen as the person in the best way carrying forward that flame of C.J. Chenier. And interestingly, or what's so cool about Nathan's story, was exposure to both C.J. Chenier and at a young age through some of his family members. He's got these great stories about he'd be out in sort of juke joints or dance halls, and secretly he wouldn't be inside. He was too young, but he'd sort of walk behind and stand up on like a washing machine. I think he said. So I envisioned this washing machine outside the back window of a juke joint or something, and peer in and watch C.J. Chenier play. So he had some family members who also played with him. So he sort of touched on C.J. Chenier, who even predicted that he would go on to be a great performer. And then as a young adult, he was mentored by Buckwheat Zydeco, another of the really important names in the history of Zydeco music. So the people who have really brought him along in the tradition are the biggest names you can really mention, and he's just doing a wonderful job carrying that forward. Playing that music from Southwest Louisiana, French speaking Creole and black music from Southwest Louisiana.
Now, I understand, by the way, he was actually asked by his uncle, I guess, to fill in on a song, and music seems to have been all around him. Porch jams, block dances. Tell me a little bit about that personal history there.
Yeah, and that's it really speaks to his deep roots in the tradition. Like you said, he had uncles and extended family members who hosted house parties, who played music. And back around that time, la-la would still have been one of the musical forms that was being played. La-la was sort of the pre-Zydeco Creole music in Southwest Louisiana, deeply influenced by French fiddle tunes. And so Nathan grew up hearing a lot of la-la music around the house. So that really grounded him in the tradition. And family is a big through line in his story. His brother Sid was a major influence. Nathan went to live with him in Lafayette. Nathan was born in St. Martinville, Louisiana, but as a young teenager, he went to live with his brother Sid in Lafayette, and Sid was himself very young, and started raising Nathan. And Sid has a multifaceted store, I guess you could say, in Lafayette that's sort of part butcher shop, part restaurant, part dance hall. And Nathan started working there, and then when Buckwheat Zydeco was fronting the house band, and when Buckwheat moved on, Nathan stepped in and fronted the house band, and then Sid became his manager for a long time. So family is deeply important to Nathan's story and his career as a musician.
So we'll hear a little bit of it. Yeah. I want to turn now to another artist, Dale Ann Bradley, and bluegrass. Tell me a little bit about Dale's history and the kind of bluegrass that's being played.
Sure, Don. First, I think I need to correct a little mistake I made just there. I kept saying C.J. Chenier, and C.J. is Clifton Chenier's son. I got my facts crisscrossed.
Sure.
So when I was saying that Nathan was deeply influenced, I meant to say Clifton Chenier, and then C.J. is Clifton Chenier Jr., hence the C.J. And so Zydeco fans may be listening and thinking I flip-flopped and crisscrossed time, so I wanted to correct that.
You got it.
So thanks for that. Now to Dale Ann Bradley. Dale Ann is just a wonderful performer, and we love working with her, and so excited to finally get her to Salisbury. She actually participated in the virtual festival we did in 2020 after the COVID cancellation. She's from Kentucky, grew up in a primitive Baptist church, so really at the root of some of the music that influenced the emergence and how bluegrass, sort of the community roots of bluegrass there in the church, and grew up singing in her church congregation, so had deep exposure to the tradition from a young age. And then, by the time she was in high school, she started playing with different groups, and quickly became known and acclaimed for being one of the premier female vocalists in bluegrass music. And at this point, she's now a 6-time winner of the International Bluegrass Music Association's, or the IBMA, Female Vocalist of the Year Award, and that's the most significant award that can be given out in bluegrass. And so that she's a 6-time winner really speaks to how highly regarded she is. And just a wonderful singer and songwriter. She has a top-notch band she's playing with now, and is always a favorite and a highlight to have at the festival. So it's sort of like Eileen, deeply modest, but also in a way that belies just how truly talented she is.
How do you see her capturing that essence of bluegrass here in America?
For me, it's those roots in the Appalachian region of Kentucky, and coming out of the church tradition, and it's something that comes through in her singing. That somebody who maybe grew, and this is what the festival is about, and the artists that we try to present. I mean, you have somebody who maybe grew up and heard some bluegrass on the radio or on a record and liked it and has a lot of talent. And then you have somebody like a Dale Ann Bradley who grew up around the music, and something through that experience comes through in her voice, and in a way that wouldn't for somebody else. And so she's really at the deep root of the music, and still living, still maintains that, playing with musicians similarly who are deeply rooted. And so that for me is what's so significant about Dale, is how that community sense and family history really empowers her voice in a way that's just really striking. And the other thing is she's a great songwriter. She sings plenty of traditional material, but some of what you'll hear is also just some great songwriting. It's always just a wonderful treat to have her at a festival.
I want to turn to South America, Rogelio Ortiz and Eduardo Betancourt. Tell me a little bit about the music that I guess comes from sort of the border between Venezuela and Colombia.
Yeah, so Rogelio Ortiz is, this is the first time the NCTA will have worked with him, and we're really excited for him to perform his first National Folk Festival, and especially for it to be one in Salisbury, Maryland, because Rogelio has been living in Laurel, Maryland for about 6 years. He plays what's called musica llanera, or it's sometimes referred to as joropo music, and this is music that comes out of the Orinoco River Valley, which is a river that runs along the border of Colombia and Venezuela. And within the plains surrounding the river is cowboy and ranching culture, both that bridges both countries. And the music of this culture is llanero music, because it's the word for cowboy in that region is llaneros with an S, and it combines indigenous Spanish and African melodies and rhythms, the cultural mixing that was there, the different cultural flavors and influences. And there, also includes the work songs of ranchers and cattle drivers, and the lifestyle really comes out in the music. There's this driving rhythm, and when the music is referred to as joropo instead of llanera, it really is meant to be speaking to the highly energetic and aggressive dance that goes along with some of the music. And so it's rooted in that cowboy culture coming out of the region. Now, Rogelio you'll hear some of, and the harp is a really important instrument that drives the rhythm of the music. And Eduardo Betancourt is a harpist based in Boston, but from Venezuela, who will be with Rogelio. So it's a really exciting collaboration. And then the last thing I would note about Rogelio is, even though you'll hear those hard driving rhythms, like I was saying, he's also known for these really passionate and romantic, slower songs coming out of the tradition. So audiences will hear a mix of that really energetic and aggressive, hard-driving style, but also some really heartbreaking sort of ballad-like performances. So it's a really nice combination, and it's a tradition we have not yet had at the National. And an artist we've never worked with before. He's relatively new to Maryland, so it's really exciting.
I want to turn back to Caroline here. This is the last year, at least on the national level. As you look back, and we still haven't the end of it yet, but what kind of feelings do you have about it? I mean, it's been a pretty long trek. Actually, it's been really 4 years, because we skipped, or 5 years? Has it been 5 years? Because we skipped a couple of years?
We had a virtual festival in 2020, and now we are having an extra year. So last year was our third year of the festival, and now we're having an extra year. So it's been 5 years, and it's been an incredible experience. We've learned so much. We've brought these incredible artists and performers and dancers and storytellers to our community. And the thing that I run into whenever I see someone that either recognizes me from the festival or sees I'm wearing a festival shirt, they always comment about how much they enjoy experiencing new music and new cultures that they haven't experienced before. And they hope that we continue this, and we are going to continue this with the Maryland Folk Festival. I do have to say that the artists that we've been talking about today are diverse and wonderful and award-winning, and just these master artists. And if you want to check them out, you can go to nationalfolkfestival.com to their artist pages. So, for example, if you want to see clips from Gene Tagaban and his performance as the Raven, you can go onto his page, and there's videos of him, and he is mesmerizing. And I can't wait for us to be dancing Zydeco at the Purdue Dance Pavilion, as well as other amazing dance bands that will be there. And we were talking about Dalian Bradley and the storytelling that she does with her songs. It's so rooted in Appalachia and her history. And I feel like every artist that comes brings that depth with them. And I'm just excited for us to have the 81st National Folk Festival here this August.
By the way, in terms of Maryland, obviously you're going to have crafts and that sort of thing. Tell me a little bit about the Maryland component of what's coming up.
Sure. Actually, the Maryland Traditions Folklife area and stage is being finalized now, and in mid-June we'll announce that program, which will be engaging and interactive and a lot of fun. I can't wait to tell you more about it then.
Okay. So, any feelings about this experience? I mean, is it something different than when you first looked at doing it? I mean, what kind of impact has it had on you?
It's had an incredible impact on the civic pride, I think, in our community. I know in the beginning it seemed like an impossible task.
Right.
And some of the feedback we got was, you can't do this, it's too hard, it's too big. And I think what our community has found is that we can do things like this. It doesn't have to, it's not just the festival. We can set challenges for ourselves, and we can exceed expectations if we come together. And I've seen that in other events over the years, and I've seen the sort of artistic seeds being planted throughout the area. I'm very excited to see where this leads us in the future.
We've been speaking with Caroline O'Hara. She's the local manager for the National Folk Festival here in Salisbury. Also on the phone with us has been Blaine Wade. He's the Associate Director of the National Council for the Traditional Arts, and we appreciate both of you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This has been Delmarva Today. I'm Don Rush. Thanks for listening.
Delmarva Today with Don Rush.